Hilda and I were deeply disappointed in the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. When January 20th rolled around, I decided for the sake of my own sanity to simply bury my head in the sand and not pay any attention to what was going on in Washington. That lasted about a week. There were just so many different horror stories emerging that I could not stay on the sidelines any longer. Instead of surgically trying to reduce the federal bureaucracy, the Trump-Musk administration has taken a sledgehammer to our government and indiscriminately terminated thousands and thousands of dedicated civil servants who have the misfortune of being considered probationary employees. They have frozen grants, contracts, and aid to thousands of organizations and put millions of people's lives at risk. Hilda and I were particularly concerned about the cuts to the Centers for Disease Control because we just went through the worst pandemic in a century. The bird flu is becoming a serious threat to humans, as we will hear in a few minutes. And you never know when the next pandemic might strike. As a result, I reached out to Congressman Shri Thanedar for guidance on what we can do to try to stop the carnage, and that is what led to today's town hall meeting. We have some great speakers joining us today, and we hope that everyone leaves this meeting armed with knowledge about what is happening and what steps can be taken to mitigate this disaster in the making. Hilda and I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank Congressman Shri Thanedar and his team for helping put together today's program, and we'd like to especially thank Reverend Emily Guffey and Christ Church Detroit for their warm and gracious hospitality. It is now our great honor and privilege to turn things over to our member of Congress, proudly representing the 13th Congressional District, Representative Shri Thanedar.
Good afternoon. I'm a little afraid to ask how are you? If I see a lot of frustration. This is my fourth town hall in just last 10 days. And I've seen across the district. Just yesterday we were in Ramillas. And I'm seeing the frustration all across America. I'm seeing the disappointment all across America. And I'm seeing the fear and not knowing what programs are going to be cut, what services are going to be cut, and how is that going to affect our health? How is it going to affect our security? And there are a lot of questions right now. So, but we have options, we have leverage, we have power. And our power is you all. You all, when you show up, your voice matters. Your presence matters. When you stand up, express your thoughts, your views, it matters. So we'll talk about what are we going to do, what is our power, and how are we going to speak about that to those in power. But let us get started. We have our first speaker. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to?
Thank you. Our first guest is Dr. Jody Guest. Dr. Jody Guest is a professor and senior vice chair of the Department of Epidemiology at Rollins School of Public Health and at the School of Medicine at Emory University. She has been the recipient of multiple awards at Emory, most recently the 2022 Distinguished Lifetime Achievement Alumni Award for Rollins School of Public Health, the 2022 and 2020 Rollins School of Public Health Professor of the Year, 2020 Teaching Excellence Award from the Department of Epidemiology, and the 2019 Emory School of Medicine Excellence in Diversity and Inclusion Award. Dr. Guest has a broad background in epidemiology and specific expertise in HIV cohorts and clinical trials, having focused her research in racial, sexual, and gender minority populations in HIV care, along with emergency preparedness. She is joining us today via Zoom from Alaska, where she is participating in the Iditarod competition. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Jody Guest. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I will say I'm not actually an Iditarod participant. I am the public health director of the race, so I'm not going to be mushing with dog sleds, but we'll be up here for the race. So again, thank you for having me, and thank you all for being here to listen to some of what's been happening in public health the past couple of weeks. As was said, I'm an epidemiologist and I specialize in infectious disease. Specifically, I specialize in HIV and COVID-19, outbreak preparedness, and science communication. The last few weeks have been filled with a lot of turmoil in public health. And I want to put that in some perspective about who we have been in public health in the United States. Ever since World War II, the United States has been the global leader in science. And we have benefited as a society immensely from that status. Research fuels American innovation and the economy in turn. Scientists from around the world have consistently wanted to study with us in the United States and collaborate with American scientists, including and almost specifically at the CDC. That scientific leadership is now being dismantled, and this could lead to long-lasting and perhaps irreparable damage to our nation's health and our leadership in science. And that's a lot of what I want to try to present to you today. Several federal agencies, including the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which is in Atlanta, and normally when I'm there, it's the building right next to mine at Emory, they collect and aggregate critical data on disease and health trends from disparate sources that feed into the work of scientists all across the country and across the world. This work has been harder the past several weeks, and I want to point out a few reasons why. First, the data that support much of our work was taken off the CDC website a month ago. This is where public health folks go to get the latest information and data. This is where the public goes for the best information on how to stay safe. And this is where your clinicians also go for updated information that is specific to vaccines and other things like that to keep you safe when they see you. When these sites had their information removed, it affected all of us. Everything HIV related was gone. A search for chronic disease risk indicators came up with missing pages, and a program called the Youth Risk Behavioral Surveillance System, the nation's leading surveillance system on our youth that has been used for decades to create prevention strategies to keep all of our youth safe and living long and healthy lives, was gone. The Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry was missing. Data about foods that are risky in pregnancy was missing. And I point out a few of these examples to show you it wasn't one particular disease process that was targeted. It was a plethora of information that was all of a sudden missing. I want to be clear that these data are collected with our tax dollars, and these data are the data that healthcare providers use to care for each of you. Changes like this affect the health of our nation in substantial ways. Most of the data, though not all, are now back, but much of it now carries a statement, and I'm going to read this statement to you. Per a court order, HHS, which is the Health and Human Services, is required to restore this website as of 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, February 11th, 2025. Any information on this page promoting gender ideology is extremely inaccurate and disconnected from the immutable biological reality that there are two sexes, male and female. The Trump administration rejects gender ideology and condemns the harms it causes to children by promoting their chemical and surgical mutilation, and to women by depriving them of their dignity, safety, well-being, and opportunities. This page does not reflect biological reality, and therefore the administration in this department rejects it. As an example, this is now the banner that is across the entire front page for anything HIV related